Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Draconum Blade. And Draconum Blade has a follow-up to several recent vlogs that I have done about the afterlife and expectation. And Draconum Blade writes to ask, if our experience of the afterlife is determined by our expectations, does this mean that I could ascend to Valhalla even though I've not been a warrior on this physical plane? And my answer to this is that, with a number of caveats, which we shall go into presently, my answer would be yes. Now, the caveats would be these, that we do believe that expectation colors our experience of the afterlife, particularly initially, not necessarily permanently. The expectations should give way to a more accurate perception of what is there. So you'll initially find what you expect, but it isn't necessarily what you're going to continue to see. You'll see things more and more as they are. Even to the extent that you may not, what you perceive will still be what is there, but through the color of the lens of your choice. Meaning that your cultural expectations may color the forms that things take, but not what will happen. It will still be a place of peace, it will still be a place of healing, regardless of your cultural expectation. So with these caveats, that it isn't necessarily permanent and that it's a matter of how you see it, not exactly how you experience it, yes, I would say that if you believe it, then yes, that could be so. Now you also have to be talking about your real expectations. It's not necessarily what you want, although you can work with that. And in her book, Living the Wiccan Life, my beloved cousin Crystal talks about a method of mapping out one's death experience to take one to the place one wants to go, which I think is very fascinating, and I would recommend looking into that. But it comes down to the same thing. It's a matter of the lens you're looking through, not necessarily what you'll actually experience when you get there. That is still what it is. Now, there is a famous joke that I'm very fond of, and I actually included it in my third-degree book, because it is a joke, but it's also a teaching. And the joke is this. A pagan priestess dies, and she goes to the gates of the Summerland, where she is met by her beloved grandmother. And her grandmother takes her around and introduces her to everyone. She takes her to the Egyptians, who are in the fields of Osiris, and she takes her to the Greeks, who are in the Elysian fields, and she takes them to the Buddhists, who are in Nirvana, and she takes them to the Druids in their place, and the Germanic types in Valhalla, and so forth, and introduces her granddaughter around. And finally, as they're going from place to place, they come to a very large, grim, gray building. And her grandmother says, "Shh, you must be very quiet here." And they tiptoe past the building. And this, of course, makes the priestess very curious. And she says, "Grandmother, why did we have to be so quiet when we went by that building?" And the grandmother replies, "Well, those are the Christians, dear. They think they're the only ones here." And this is, in fact, a teaching that what you expect will color your experience. Because a certain type of Christian believes that they're the only ones who will be in the afterlife. That may be what they at least initially experience. It doesn't mean it's so. And if they are sufficiently open-minded, they would eventually start to realize they're not alone. And there's a book that I read once by a man who does a great deal of work with the afterlife. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but I can remember the anecdote very well. And he talks about encountering a woman in the spirit realms. And this woman was lying on a bed, pretending to be asleep. And he asked other spirits around what was going on. And they explained that in life she had been a very devout Christian whose expectation was that she would sleep until Judgment Day. Therefore, although she was very much awake, she refused to take part in anything because she believed it was her duty to stay there and do her best to be asleep, and that's what she did. And that kind of speaks to the same idea. If you expect that this is what's going to happen, you can make it what's going to happen, even though you may be perfectly aware that it's not really what's happening. So, in the end, the afterlife is a place of peace and healing. It can also be a place with a great many fascinating jobs that people can do, such as being spirit guides. But the way that you'll perceive it has everything to do with the lens you're looking through, and to some extent that can, in fact, be a matter of choice. But it also is very often temporary. Once you're there, and once you start to experience things, that lens may become less and less strong, and you'll see things more in the energetic nature that they actually possess. So in the end, my answer would be that yes, even though you have not been a warrior in this life, if you truly believe and expect it, Yes, I would say that you could find yourself having the experience of Valhalla. Although I would point out that there's more than one kind of warrior in the contemporary world. But that's a whole other question. So those would be my thoughts on the matter. I hope you find them helpful, and until next time, may you blessed be. Pray for peace. Pray for love. Pray for stability. Pray for the nation where you live. Pray for the world. Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis, and did you know that I'm also a psychic reader? For over 30 years I have been a psychic reader specializing in tarot and clairvoyance, and if you would like a reading with me, you can set one up, either by phone or by email, by contacting me at donlewishp@aol.com. And until next time, may you blessed be.